What's up, guys? It's your boy, the Anime Ambu here, and it's my first ever video. And if you can't tell from the voice, your boy's a little nervous. But this one, I'm titling it "What If Naruto Was Like Minato?" because in the little quick synopsis that the author gives prior to me reading this book, they basically say, "What if Naruto was more serious and smarter, and basically in support for Naruto, but was insulted." The book is titled Return of the Flash. It is on Wattpad. I am using the application, not the website. So I don't actually know how to link the book series. So if somebody could help me with that, that'd be much appreciated. But besides that, I don't think there's anything else to talk about, except for... No, actually nothing. All right, then, let's get into it. Gotta put the reading voice on. Naruto Uzumaki. Damn. Naruto Uzumaki was not a normal boy by any means. Naruto Uzumaki wasn't your run-of-the-mill orphan. He was, as every orphan was, without a parent. He was, as every orphan was, lonely. He was, as every orphan was, sad. He wasn't, as almost every orphan was, looked at with pity and kindness, however. No. Naruto Uzumaki was looked at with disdain and hatred. Simply walking down the streets incurred several cruel beatings. He had no idea why, but the entire population of Konoha Gakure no Sato seemed to hate him. He had very few precious people. In fact, the only ones he could name off the top of his head were Hiruzen Sarutobi, or as he dubbed the Hokage, Gigi. Ayame, a girl who helped her father run a nearby ramen shop, and Teiuchi, the father of said girl. It was sad, actually. A boy of his age, 5, being hated by everyone. Naruto had learned this early on in life. He was hated in the orphanage he lived in as well. Ever since he learned to walk on his own, the matron of the orphanage started treating him like trash. He was not allowed to play with the children of his age, or even when he managed to talk to them, they would sneer at him and told him in no uncertain words that a monster like him was not welcome in their group. He would get sad and then leave. Walking the streets of the village was like trial by fire for him. He had to take careful measures to remain as unnoticeable as possible. If he got noticed, a civilian would point at him, shouting to the others, "The demon is here, get him!" He would then run for his life, entering lanes and alleys, taking a shortcut through a shop, and entering from the front door and exiting from the back. Anything to escape the beatings. But it was suspicious that a 4-year-old boy was able to escape from the mobs. What no one, including Naruto, knew was that Naruto had some special quirks. Naruto had an eidetic memory, I believe that's how you pronounce it, the ability to remember and recall anything he sees or hears once in great detail. Naruto loved to read books, but didn't know why he could recall every page of the book, down to the exact word. He found it very useful and abused it shamelessly, reading all the books he was allowed to and then some. Without telling anyone, of course. He didn't tell this to anybody, not even Gigi, fearing if this got out, he would get beaten for having freakish traits. But also discovered the downside of having such an ability. One day, when running from a mob, he accidentally entered an alley which had a dead end. There was no escape for him that day. He was punched, kicked, in every part of his body until he fell unconscious. When he woke up very mysteriously in his room at the orphanage, healed up, he was very happy he did not die. However, when he tried to sleep that night, the beatings came back in full force in the form of nightmares. Because of his ability, he experienced the beatings down to the last detail. He couldn't sleep peacefully for several nights. Another one of his quirks was a sort of sensory ability. He could sense danger if it was coming to him. However, it was a subconscious ability of sorts, activating only when he was in danger. But it was very useful in avoiding punches and stones that came when his back was turned. The village's behavior in general towards Naruto caused him to develop a need for positive attention, but also a need to avoid people. Preferring to keep to himself, he would not actively seek attention, but would latch on like a leech to anyone who gave some form of care to him. Sadly, the number of people who did could be counted on one hand. That was the reason he turned to books. At least they didn't attack him outright and allowed him to read them. Almost no one wanted to associate with him, leading him to take refuge in books. They became his best friends, always making him smile when he had learned something new. Naruto had to force himself to learn reading and writing, as the teachers at the orphanage did as least they could to help him. They would simply thrust the book in his hands and go away to help other children. He learned early not to ask questions, receiving physical punishment whenever he did. He had read about various topics, but the one thing that stood out to him was the topic of Hokage. How the Hokage was the most powerful shinobi in the village and was responsible for the village's safety. He read how powerful the Shodai Hokage was, using his unique Kekkei ability, Bloodline Limit, I believe this was, they're specifying, of Mokuton, the wood release. He was said to be the most powerful shinobi of his time, known as Shinobi no Kami, the god of shinobi, Hashirama Senju, along with Madara Uchiha, who were the two main founders of Konoha. Ironically, both were also bitter enemies, with Hashirama having to kill Madara to protect the village. The Naidame Hokage, Tobirama Senju, was the younger brother of Hashirama. He was and is still hailed as the most powerful Suiton user of all time. He was also hailed the fastest shinobi of his time, having created the famous Hiraishi no Jutsu. He was the one who started the Ninja Academy. Naruto took a liking to him, as he loved anything that was remotely associated with speed. The Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, that was his Jiji, was known as the Professor, because he could use all nature transformations and had the unsurpassed knowledge of ninjutsu. Knowing all the techniques in Konoha saved for clan techniques, he also shared the title of Shinobi no Kami with Hashirama, because in his prime, he was the strongest of all Kages. Naruto was astounded. How powerful was the man he called his Jiji? Sarutobi was the sensei of the Densetsu no Sanin, the three legendary ninjas. Calm down real quick, you feel me? Who were among the most powerful shinobi in the world. The Yondaime Hokage was the one who became his favorite, to the point that Naruto considered him as an idol, aspiring to be like him. Minato Namikaze. When he was alive, he was considered the strongest of the Hokages and arguably the most dangerous man to have graced the world of shinobi, known as Konoha no Kiroi Senko. Kiroi? Something like that. He was also considered the fastest shinobi to ever live. He was famous because he took the Hiraishi no Jutsu, the jutsu used by the Nidaime, to levels unheard of. He was the one who single-handedly ended the Third Great Shinobi War, finishing off 1,000 Iwa shinobis by himself in the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. Naruto also took note that the Yondaime suspiciously looked very much like him if he grew up. Naruto compared their physical traits, more specifically those that stood out the most. They were both blonde, the hair color being nearly identical, with Naruto's a shade brighter, but the eyes were what took him by surprise. Those azure blue shades were what he had as well. Looking back at him in the mirror every day, he became even more suspicious. And during one of his outings, when his Jiji came to take him to Ichiraku Ramen that he loved so much, he asked him what it meant to be Hokage. Flashback. Let me get a drink, please. All right, let me check real quick if this is still going. I hope it is. All right, we're good. The old man stopped eating and looked at him, his eyes piercing him as if searching for something. He then smiled and said, "Perhaps you should ask me first, Naruto, that what does it mean to be a shinobi?" Naruto looked surprised for a moment, but recovered and asked, "What does it mean to be a shinobi?" This time, Jiji answered, "To be a shinobi means to endure. A shinobi is one who can follow or lead others into any darkness and work together to overcome that darkness and make it out the other side. A shinobi walks towards danger. When everyone else is running away, that is because the duty of a shinobi is to look at any foe and simply say, 'Bring it.' That is because shinobi exist to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Naruto had a look of wonder on his face. He had no idea his Gigi was that wise. An answer like that changed Naruto's entire view of shinobi. At first, he thought that being a shinobi only meant performing cool jutsus and fighting in the name of your village. He had no idea the answer would be this deep in meaning. Sarutobi looked at Naruto mentally, smiled. He knew about Naruto's treatment by the villagers and his drive to become a Hokage. He mused, perhaps I can give him a little insight on what being a Hokage means. Sarutobi... he snapped out of his thoughts when Gigi said, Now that the answer is out of the way, I could tell you about what being a Hokage means. I know, Gigi. Those words stopped Hiruzen in his tracks. His head tilted in curiosity. You know what, Naruto? Naruto looked up, an understanding and respect in his eyes. Hiruzen was touched at the respect he was receiving from Naruto, but his curiosity was increasing. What does being a Hokage mean? Hiruzen stared at him silently, asking him to continue. Naruto spoke up. The Hokage is responsible for everything in this village. It's his responsibility to protect everyone here and to make sure they are safe and happy with their village. He tends to the finances of this village, the rules, the daily events, everything. He controls every single ninja who bears a leaf headband and basically directs when they live and die. This job is not for the faint of heart, and only for someone who loves this village deeply. At the end of his answer, he was staring back at his bowl. Hiruzen was shocked at the understanding Naruto showed of the position of Hokage. He had no idea that Naruto was this perceptive and knowledgeable. Teiuchi and Ayame had stopped working as well, staring at the blonde with wide eyes, along with the Hokage. It was simply unheard of. A 5-year-old showing such a deep understanding of something most people don't understand until much later in life. Hiruzen was shocked, so much so that he didn't even notice his jaw was hanging a bit. Such a deep perception, an insight at such a young age, he thought, with wonder. Only one person had showed such understanding like this, and he too was 3 years older. Itachi Uchiha was a prodigy among the likes of Kakashi Hatake and Minato Namikaze. Such a shame he was now missing in. Naruto looked up when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Gigi was looking at him with a strange expression. That is exactly what being a Hokage means, Naruto. A challenging smile broke out on Naruto's face, and he declared, Then I will become Hokage someday, Gigi, and not just any Hokage. I will be the strongest there will be. Hiruzen chuckled, which soon turned to laughter. The father and daughter on the other side of the counter were also smiling fondly. Naruto frowned. What? I'm serious. He was hurt that Gigi saw his declaration as a joke. Hiruzen soon calmed down, smiling fondly at the boy. He remembered another Uzumaki who used to say the same thing. But he had strong feelings that Naruto would be right. He ruffled Naruto's head and said, I know, Naruto. I have no doubt you will. Flashback, and let me get another thing of water real quick. My throat is dry. Good. All right. Ever since that day, Naruto studied even more rigorously and beginning physical training as well. Granted, a 4-year-old such as him could not do much, but he did his best. He ran 4 rounds around the village, did every exercise he could think of, and practiced his kunai and shuriken jutsu. He took those weapons by sneaking into the practice grounds and collecting them. To his surprise, the art of throwing shuriken and kunai came very natural to him. He started throwing after taking a book about weapons left behind on a training ground. He had shaken his head at the disrespect shown to the book, but took it with him anyways. Just 2 weeks of practice and he was throwing all bullseyes. That was not the only surprising thing. He had found that he could recover very quickly from physical exhaustion and wear and tear on his muscles. He recalled that he recovered surprisingly quick after the beating from the villagers. A bloodline, perhaps? He didn't dwell on it further, but filed it away for later. But today was special. So special that he would have to take extra measures in staying safe, because today was his birthday, and he was just kicked out of the orphanage. Roaming in the streets, he suspected that He suspected what would happen in the evening. Today was the day the villagers celebrated as the Kyuubi festival, the day the Yondaime defeated the Kyuubi, and the day he would be beaten within an inch of his life or hunted and possibly killed. An epiphany struck him like lightning, causing him to suddenly stop in the middle of the streets. Yondaime, Kyuubi defeat, treatment of the villagers, demon boy, Gigi's avoidance of the topic? No, he wouldn't. Naruto ran from the streets, meandering between people with the grace of a seasoned dancer or flowing water. He ran like it was no one's business, reaching his favorite spot, the head of the Yondaime, in record time. Anyone who saw him had flashbacks of another blonde running like a possessed man. I need to confirm whether it's true or not, he thought grimly, afraid of what he would find. He sat down on the head of the famed Hokage in a meditative posture and reached within, or rather spoke within. Kyuubi, if you are inside me, I want to meet you, please. For a full 5 minutes, there was no reply, and Naruto began to relax when something pulled on his mind. Naruto opened his eyes to find himself in a dark corridor. He narrowed his eyes. Is this my mindscape? He thought in disgust as he walked forward. He kept walking for a few minutes and stopped seeing some light at the end of the corridor. It seemed to pull him towards it. Time to find out what's at the end, he thought. He walked again and stopping only until the end. It was a huge room, so large and vast that the ceiling was impossible to find. He looked around, his eyes seeing black stone and nothing more. But the elephant in the room was a large iron-barred door with a paper on it that said seal. He gazed at the piece of paper, resignation written in his eyes. His azure eyes looked past the cage, looking for what he knew was in the cage. He was just waiting for the Kyuubi to open his eyes. Based on what he had read, the Kyuubi was a being of pure hatred and evil, a mindless beast capable of destruction or scare undreamt of. What the hell? Undreamt of, but Naruto was skeptical when he read that. He might get to see it for himself now. A growl sounded from the cage, sending a breath of hot air in Naruto's face. Naruto stilled himself. In spite of the cage separating him from the beast within, an enormous red eye opened, causing Naruto to tense up. The eye looked at him, as if evaluating him. Then the eye started to rise, causing Naruto to look up at the massive form. The Kyuubi had orange silky fur, with black markings around his eyes, connected to his, funnily enough, rabbit-like ears. The upper body was humanoid, including the hands. The lower body was just like a fox, barring the 9 long swaying tails on the back. Fire was the closest thing they looked like. The red-slitted eyes looked him closely with a hint of malice. Naruto spoke first. "Thank you for answering my call, Kyuubi," he said with a nod. If the Kyuubi was surprised, he didn't show it. Inside, however, he was mighty shocked. This was not the first thing he expected his jailer to say. He expected him to look at him with fear, asking whether he was really the Kyuubi, following with the denial of the possibility. He didn't expect him to thank him at all. Oh, yikes. Tired eyes, guys, Zoom calls all day. Sidetracked. Let me get back into it. He replied, "Think nothing of it. I'm surprised, though, that you were able to figure it out so quickly. Why aren't you surprised?" He asked with curiosity. Naruto sat down in front of the cage, which surprised the Biju further. Naruto was showing that he was willing to relax in front of him. "Well, for a few moments I was, but it wasn't that difficult to figure out. It was easy to create a plausible theory once you have had all relevant facts," he said, never breaking eye contact with the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi raised a massive eyebrow, silently impressed with his host. His thought process was very intelligent for someone who was only 5 years old. He was bold as well, bold enough to maintain eye contact with him. He also could not sense any fear from the boy. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" he asked. Without a moment hesitation, Naruto answered, Because you're misunderstood." That was hesitation, but maybe. This time, surprise was visible on the Kyuubi's face, which was quickly followed by anger. "What did you just say? Choose your next words very carefully," he growled. Naruto wasted no time in answering. In all the books I have read, they describe you as a being of pure hatred. But that is only one side. That is only one-sided misunderstanding, isn't it? He asked with a sad smile. Before the QB could answer, Naruto considered. Humans fear what they can't understand. The foremost aspect of your personality that they have seen is hatred, which, while a big part of you, conceals a being underneath that can feel emotions just like us. Isn't that right, QB? Bro, he is 5. Hey, I didn't write it. QB was astounded at the amount of understanding his host showed towards him. Perhaps he could. What do you want? Naruto looked at him with his azure eyes, reminding the QB of another set of blues that looked at him fearlessly before sealing him. If you wouldn't mind, a hesitant smile appeared on Naruto's face. Would you be my friend? The QB was truly stupefied at the request. For the first time in centuries of his existence, someone had asked if they could be his friend. Naruto saw the QB's surprise, and for the QB, if Naruto's request was not surprising enough, he was totally blown away by what Naruto did next. Naruto got up from his spot and walked into the cage. He walked up close and offered a hand for him to take. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. It's nice to meet you. The QB had abandoned all sign of remaining composed and was openly gaping at Naruto. But he composed himself quickly and gave a sincere smile to Naruto. Seeing Naruto was too small to even shake his finger, he extended his index nail to him. My name is Kurama. Nice to meet you. And that is the end of Chapter 1 of the Return of the Flash book on Wattpad. Or What If Naruto Was Like Minato? That's what I'm titling it for YouTube purposes. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have much else to say. If people see this, I would really appreciate if you could comment something. Like, let me know what I can improve. Oh, Lord. What I can improve in the future. And just let me know how I can get better. Obviously, I have limited resources. You can see I'm using my phone. But, yeah, I think that's about it. This is your boy, the Anime Ambu. I'll be back at you probably tomorrow or the next day. And, yeah, we out.